Sometimes I look back at my life, at that part of my life, and it feels like I'm watching a movie about someone else. Like it couldn't possibly be me, who lived through all that. But it was. And tonight, I feel like I need to talk about it. Get it all out. For years, I kept a toothbrush in my bathroom, always waiting, always hoping. Even after I knew. It started like most stories, I guess. A chance encounter. A mutual friend's barbecue on a scorching July afternoon. I was hiding in the shade, trying to avoid small talk, when he walked up. Liam. He had this easy smile, a laugh that crinkled the corners of his eyes, and a way of making you feel like you were the only person in the world when he talked to you. He asked if I wanted another soda, and just like that, the world shifted a little on its axis. We talked for hours that day, about everything and nothing. Our favorite obscure bands, the ridiculousness of reality TV, our dreams of traveling the world. It felt like we'd known each other forever, like our souls just recognized each other. He walked me to my car, and before I could even process it, he was asking for my number, his eyes twinkling. My heart did that stupid little flutter thing. You know the one. The first few months were a whirlwind. Dates that felt like adventures. Late-night calls that bled into early mornings. He'd show up at my apartment with my favorite coffee, just because. He'd leave little notes on my dashboard. He remembered everything I said, every tiny detail. My favorite flower, lilies. The way I liked my steak cooked, medium rare, no pink. The silly fear I had of heights. He made me feel seen, truly seen, for the first time in my life. I remember one evening, we were lying on a blanket in my backyard, staring up at the stars. He pointed out constellations I'd never noticed, his voice a low rumble next to my ear. He turned to me, and his eyes, usually so full of playful mischief, were soft, serious. I think I'm falling in love with you, Sarah, he whispered, and my breath hitched. It wasn't a question, it was a statement of fact. And in that moment, under the vast, inky sky, I knew I was already tumbling head over heels for him. It felt like destiny, like the universe had finally aligned. We moved in together after a year. It felt like the natural next step. Our tiny apartment became our sanctuary. We painted the walls a calming sage green, picked out furniture together, argued playfully over whose turn it was to do dishes. Even the mundane felt magical with him. He'd sing off-key while making breakfast, and I'd pretend to be annoyed, but secretly, my heart would swell. He was my best friend, my confidant, my everything. We talked about the future, a house with a big yard, maybe a dog, kids someday. He'd talk about our forever, and I believed him with every fiber of my being. Looking back, the red flags were so subtle, so easy to dismiss when you're wrapped up in that kind of love. The first one was small. He started working longer hours. Said his new project was demanding. I understood, of course. We all have to hustle. But then the late nights became more frequent. He'd come home exhausted, sometimes smelling faintly of something I couldn't quite place. Not alcohol, not smoke. Just different. He'd say it was the office, the stale air, the late-night pizza. And I bought it. Why wouldn't I? He was Liam. My Liam. Then there were the phone calls. He'd always take them in the other room. At first, he'd just say it was work or his mom. But then he started being more secretive. His phone was always face down. He'd jump if I walked into the room when he was texting. I'd ask, "Who was that?" And he'd give a vague answer, a quick kiss on my forehead, and change the subject. My stomach would tighten a little, a tiny knot of unease, but I'd tell myself I was being paranoid. He loved me. He told me every day. One time, I found a receipt in his jeans pocket. A fancy restaurant, one we talked about going to for our anniversary but hadn't made it yet. The date on the receipt was a Tuesday night, a night he'd told me he was working late. My heart hammered against my ribs. I picked it up, my fingers trembling. "Liam," I asked, trying to keep my voice even when he walked in. "What's this?" He glanced at it, his face unreadable for a split second before he plastered on that easy smile. "Oh, that? Yeah, client dinner. Big deal, had to impress them. Forgot to expense it." He took it from my hand, crumpled it, and tossed it in the trash. The knot in my stomach tightened into a painful ball, but I swallowed it down. Client dinner. Right. The distance between us grew, imperceptibly at first. Our late-night talks dwindled. Our spontaneous adventures became planned, almost forced. He was always tired, always stressed. I tried to bridge the gap, to remind us of what we had. I'd cook his favorite meals, leave him little notes, suggest weekend getaways. He'd respond with a tired smile, a quick hug, and then retreat into his phone or the TV. I felt like I was constantly reaching for him, and he was always just out of reach. I remember one Saturday morning. I woke up early, feeling hopeful. I made pancakes, his favorite, with fresh berries. The sun was streaming through the window, and I imagined us laughing, sharing coffee, planning our day. He came out of the bedroom, already dressed, his bag over his shoulder. "Morning, babe," he said, not meeting my eyes. "Gotta run. Early meeting." My heart sank. But pancakes. I gestured to the table. He gave a quick, apologetic shrug. "Rain check, okay? Love you." And he was out the door before I could even respond. The pancakes sat there getting cold. I ate them alone, the sweetness tasting like ash in my mouth. The phone calls continued, always hushed, always in another room. He started going to the gym more, or so he said. He bought new clothes, expensive ones, not his usual casual wear. He started smelling different, too. A new cologne, something musky and unfamiliar. I tried to ignore the growing dread, the whispers of doubt that echoed in my mind. I told myself I was being insecure, that I was imagining things. He was just busy, successful, evolving. And I loved him. So I trusted him. Or I desperately wanted to trust him. Then came the night, everything shattered. It was a Tuesday again. He said he was working late, a big presentation the next day. I was home, watching a movie, trying to ignore the gnawing feeling in my gut. Around 11 p.m., I got a text. Not from Liam, from Sarah. My best friend, Sarah. The text simply said, "Are you with Liam right now?" My blood ran cold. My fingers fumbled as I typed back, "No, he's working." "Why?" Her reply came instantly, and it was a photo. A photo of Liam. My Liam. Standing outside a trendy bar downtown, his arm wrapped around another woman. Her head was thrown back, laughing, looking up at him with adoration. And his smile, it wasn't the tired, stressed smile he gave me. It was that smile. The easy, crinkling eyes smile he'd given me on our first day. The one that made me fall in love. My world tilted. The air left my lungs. It felt like I'd been punched in the stomach, then had all the oxygen sucked out of the room. I stared at the photo, my vision blurring, trying to make sense of it. It had to be a mistake. A misunderstanding. Maybe it was a colleague? A distant cousin? But the way his arm was around her, the intimacy in their body language, it screamed otherwise. I called him. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. It rang and rang. No answer. I called again. Still nothing. My mind raced, a chaotic storm of denial, anger, confusion, and a crushing, suffocating pain. I kept calling, every few minutes, my voice thick with unshed tears, leaving voicemails that started calm and ended in desperate pleas. "Liam, where are you? What is this? Please just tell me." He finally called back at 2 a.m. His voice was groggy, annoyed. "What's wrong, Sarah? Why are you blowing up my phone? Where are you?" I choked out, the photo burned into my mind. Who is she? There was a beat of silence. A long, agonizing silence. Then a sigh. A tired, exasperated sigh. "Look, Sarah, I can explain. It's not what you think." "Don't you dare tell me it's not what I think," I screamed, the tears finally breaking free, hot and stinging. "I have a picture, Liam. A picture of you with another woman. What the hell is going on?" He came home an hour later. The air in our apartment, once filled with laughter and love, was thick with betrayal. He stood in the living room, looking tired, almost bored. He didn't deny it. He just explained it away. "She's a colleague. Things got complicated. It just happened." He said it like he was talking about spilled milk. My knees buckled. I sank onto the couch, feeling like my bones had turned to jelly. "How long?" I whispered, the words barely audible. "A few months," he mumbled, avoiding my gaze. "It didn't mean anything, Sarah. You know I love you. You know I love you." The words, once so comforting, now felt like a cruel joke. How could he say that? How could he look at me, at our home, and say that? The next few weeks were a blur of tears, arguments, and a desperate, agonizing hope. He said he was sorry. He said he'd messed up. He said he'd end it with her. He promised he'd change. And I, foolish, broken, desperate for the life we had, believed him. I wanted to believe him so badly. I wanted him back. The Liam I knew. The Liam who brought me coffee, who pointed out constellations, who talked about forever. He didn't leave, but he didn't really stay either. He was physically present, but emotionally, he was gone. He'd come home, eat dinner in silence, retreat to his phone. The arguments would flare up, fueled by my pain and his guilt. He'd apologize, promise to do better, and for a day or two, things would feel a tiny bit lighter. Then the cycle would repeat. The late nights, the hushed calls, the distant eyes. I became a ghost in my own home. I stopped cooking. I stopped trying to make conversation. I walked on eggshells, terrified of saying or doing anything that might push him further away. I clung to every crumb of affection, every fleeting moment of his old self. I convinced myself that if I was just patient enough, loving enough, understanding enough, he'd see what he was losing. He'd come back to me, the real him. I stayed for years. Years. The toothbrush in the bathroom, a silent testament to my desperate hope. Every time he went out, I'd imagine him coming back, bursting through the door, saying he'd made a terrible mistake, that he was finally ready to be ours again. I'd wake up every morning with a pang of dread, wondering if today would be the day he finally left, or the day he finally returned. My friends tried to talk sense into me. Sarah, you deserve so much more. He's not going to change. You're destroying yourself. I'd nod, pretend to listen, but inside, I'd shut them out. They didn't understand. They didn't understand the depth of my love, the history we shared, the future we'd planned. They didn't understand that I couldn't just give up on him. Not yet. The turning point wasn't a grand revelation. It was a slow, agonizing erosion of my own spirit. I looked in the mirror one morning, and I didn't recognize the woman staring back. Her eyes were hollow. Her smile was gone, replaced by a permanent frown line between her brows. I was thin, exhausted, constantly on edge. I was a shadow of myself. And for the first time, it hit me. He wasn't coming back. Not the Liam I loved. That Liam was gone. He had been gone for a long time. The man living in my apartment was a stranger, a constant reminder of my heartbreak and my foolish hope. He wasn't going to magically transform back into the person I fell in love with. He was who he was now. And who he was now was someone who could betray me, lie to me, and slowly, systematically, break my spirit. The realization was like a physical blow, but also, strangely, a breath of fresh air. The hope, which had been a heavy chain around my ankle, suddenly felt lighter. It wasn't hope anymore. It was denial, and I was tired of denying. I started by taking back small pieces of myself. I went for walks alone, listening to music that wasn't our songs. I started painting again, a hobby I'd abandoned. I reached out to friends I'd pushed away. I started seeing a therapist who patiently listened to me unravel years of pain and self-blame. She helped me see that his actions weren't a reflection of my worth, but of his own choices. The conversation with Liam was quiet, almost anticlimactic. I told him I couldn't do it anymore, that I deserved more, that we deserved more than this hollow existence. He looked surprised, almost hurt. He tried to argue, to promise again, but this time, his words held no power over me. The spell was broken. I need you to leave, Liam, I said, my voice steady, though my heart was pounding. I need you to move out. He packed his things over a few days. The apartment felt emptier with each box he carried out, but also, paradoxically, lighter. When he finally closed the door behind him for the last time, I stood in the silence, a strange mix of profound grief and immense relief washing over me. The toothbrush in the bathroom was still there. I picked it up, walked to the trash can, and with a deep, shaky breath, I dropped it in. It wasn't just a toothbrush. It was years of waiting, years of hoping, years of a love that had become a cage. It's been a while now. The apartment feels like my home again. I've repainted the sage green walls a bright, hopeful yellow. I've filled it with things that make me happy. The pain isn't completely gone, not really. It's like a scar, a faint ache that reminds me of what I went through. But it doesn't define me anymore. I learned that love isn't about waiting for someone to change, or clinging to a ghost of who they once were. It's about recognizing your own worth, and having the courage to walk away from anything that diminishes it. I'm still healing, still learning to trust again, to open my heart without fear. But I'm stronger now, wiser. And I know, with absolute certainty, that the best love stories are the ones where you find your way back to yourself. If you've ever been through something like this, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if this story hit you even a little bit, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on that bell.